Yes, there's another new car brand joining the Australian market. This one's called Jaecoo, and it's a sub-brand of Chinese car maker Chery. This is the first product, called the J7. It's actually a rebadged version of a Chery vehicle sold overseas. Two trim levels are available in Australia, the Core and the Track. Here we're testing the Track. All-wheel drive and plug-in hybrid options will be available soon as well. In terms of the design, yeah, it looks pretty futuristic, but very unique. There's high attention to detail in the headlights and taillights, with a kind of sporty wagon side profile. And then around at the back you've got the fashionable full-width taillight. This example is front-wheel drive, but it's good to see there is a proper multi-link suspension setup at the back. There's also muscular wheel arches, hiding a set of 18-inch alloy wheels. These are wrapped in 235/55 tyres. Inside is probably the star of the show. It looks very modern, huge touchscreen, some interesting detailing across the dash, kind of like a tread pattern, and mostly soft touch materials too. It's all feature packed as well. This top spec Track version features an 8-speaker Sony sound system, as well as crisp surround view cameras, selectable ambient lighting, a 50-watt wireless phone charger, and lots of storage, including underneath the floating center console. Passenger space is pretty good, but I can't seem to find a perfect driving position. The steering column does offer rake and reach adjustment, but the steering wheel doesn't pull out enough in my opinion. The steering column is also tilted slightly downwards, so it's not vertical with your chest. And in the back you've got decent legroom and headroom for this class, although the roof profile is not as tall as some rivals. So if you want absolute maximum headroom, I think there are some rivals that offer a bit more than this. Just the one climate vent in the back of the console, which means passengers have to fight over which direction it points, but you do get a couple of charging ports and a little spot to store your phone. The floor is almost completely flat as well, so whoever sits in the middle is getting decent legroom. And then up at the back you've got a decent sized boot with a dual level floor, a 12-volt socket on the side, and some hooks to secure your shopping bags. Overall, you've got about 574 litres, expanding to just under 1500 litres, which is pretty good for this class actually. Underneath, you'll find a space saver spare wheel. Under the bonnet, you've got a 1.6 litre turbo petrol 4-cylinder. It produces a decent 137 kilowatts and 275 newton meters. This is matched to a 7-speed dual clutch automatic. Like with other practical little SUVs, I don't think a dual clutch automatic is a good option. It's just not as smooth as a conventional torque converter, and it doesn't seem to match this style of vehicle. Fuel economy is rated at 7 litres per 100 kilometres for the front-wheel drive model. Out on the road, it's actually pretty refined and quiet. Most of the materials feel pretty soft. It's got this kind of tread pattern along the dash, which is soft as well, and it adds to the acoustics, so it feels and sounds quite refined in here, for its price tag and vehicle category anyway. The throttle and acceleration is a little bit sort of elastic. With a dual clutch gearbox there's a bit of a delay, especially going from reverse to drive and in stop-start conditions. It's something you have to accommodate for, like with most dual clutch gearboxes. This seems to be even more delayed going through the gears as well. I'll just show you. So I'll just give it some and let it go up through the gears, and just take note of the time it takes to change gear. There's kind of this little delay where it's probably trying to smooth out the gear shifts, which is fine, but just when you want to do some overtaking or something, you'll just know that notice there's a little bit of a delay there. I was trying to show you the gear selection position there. The engine is pretty quiet though, it just hums along in the background, and even road noise is quite minimal. This does come with Cooper tyres, fortunately. It doesn't come with some of these cheaper brand tyres that are coming out. So braking performance is not too bad, as you'll see. In terms of handling, yeah, it's okay. Like this is a cheap little SUV, so you can't expect too much there, but it's actually not too bad. The steering is probably the main letdown. It just feels quite sluggish, and it kind of feels like you're spinning a shovel in a bucket of custard or something. Like it's just really heavy and not much feedback coming through, or actually there's little bursts of feedback that come through and then nothing at other times. So yeah, it's not the best steering system in my opinion, but the actual handling during the slalom test I did at 70 kilometers an hour as usual, the body control is quite good, and the predictability is also good. Like I know what the vehicle is going to do, and it's relatively precise. This does come with a lot of driver assistance functions and features, as usual with these modern vehicles, including a driver monitoring camera. It hasn't actually gone off on me for no reason that much. It sends up a little message, but there's no beeps and bongs or anything, and over-the-top warnings. It's just this little message that comes up. You might have seen just before. You have been distracted for a long time, but that's it. And it doesn't actually come up that often. So as you can tell now, I've been talking for a while and it hasn't popped up. You can turn all of this off in the main menu here in the vehicle settings page. Now the lane keep assist as well. So there we go. You have been distracted for a long time. The lane keep assist, I usually turn that off because I feel like that's playing a part in that unusual steering feel. But it's not the best. It probably needs a bit more calibration. I reckon if any calibration needs to be done, it's with the cruise control system. So we'll go out onto the highway now and I'll try and show you, but it just doesn't seem very refined. It's very lagging in its response, but I'll show you what I mean. There are some cabin creaks and rattles, mainly around the door seals. It kind of sounds like the rubber seal is just vibrating up against the body. I'm not sure if you can hear that on the doors, but yeah. I mean, this is cheaper than the typical rivals, but those rivals like the CX-5 and the RAV4 don't typically have those sorts of rattles. They're very minor and don't really do anything anyway, so it's not too bad. Out on the highway, it's very smooth and quiet, relatively refined for this price category. Even though it does have big chunky side mirrors, there's not too much wind noise. And speaking of which, yeah, visibility is really good out the front. The bonnet is quite low and the dashboard doesn't get in your way, and even around this front corner here the pillar is relatively thin and I can see kind of around the mirror, the big mirror. Even though it is a big mirror, I can kind of see and I've got a general sense of what's going on around there. Around the back though, it's pretty tight looking through the rear windscreen, and the pillars are quite chunky as well as the headrests, so the view at the back is a little bit constricted compared with others in this class. In terms of that cruise control though, so we've got this real-time monitor here showing what vehicles are around me, but it's not completely reliable, and in fact some cars just disappear for no, like just then, that car beside me just disappeared, and other times it'll show a truck or something in front of you, or the front right-hand side, left-hand side, and then it just disappears. So it's not completely reliable. I don't know why they want to show that. If that's what the car is seeing, then that's not good, but obviously there are other sensors and so on involved. But yeah, just get rid of that. We don't need to see that. When you activate the cruise control, which is a little bit fiddly, just then you probably saw some trucks and stuff disappearing and then popping up. You've got to activate using these buttons down here. You've got a speed limiter button, which is also the cruise control button. You just hit that once and it's set, and you can change the speed using the arrows. So I've just got it set at 110 exactly, and I'll try to show you what I mean, but basically it's kind of like a teenager is sitting in the boot, remote controlling the vehicle, looking at a computer screen from the back, but not actually seeing what's going on, because it's just, yeah, a little bit delayed and a little bit hesitant. If I pull out, if there's a car in front of me going a little bit slow and I pull out into the fast lane and there's no one in front of me, this will just, I'll just sit there for a minute until it registers, oh, there's no vehicle in front of me, now I can apply some power and move up. And if there's someone coming behind you that you can see that, you know, they're well behind you enough, but if you're just sitting in that lane, just not going fast enough and not actually overtaking, it can be frustrating for others. I've got the cruise control set at 110. I'll just get into this lane. So we're not accelerating now, we're just starting to slightly accelerate. That probably wasn't a good example, but you kind of get what I mean. Whereas other vehicles I've noticed, especially the really tech-heavy vehicles like Volvos and so on, that really concentrate on this sort of technology, you can pretty much change lanes while you're still approaching the vehicle and get quite close, because it knows you've got your indicator on and it's not going to pull the put the brakes on. It knows that you're going to change lanes. So right now I'm not going to touch anything. There's a car coming, so I'm waiting. That car's coming down the side. Why didn't it pull up? It still hasn't caught up to that car in front, and in fact it's struggling a little bit now. I've got my feet completely off the pedals. yeah, it's just not refined. I think it just needs more tuning. I've also noticed just then, actually, as you just might have seen, it picks up the wrong speed limit information. I was driving along earlier and there was an exit off the highway, and off the highway, like well off my road, there was a speed sign that said 60 because it was an exit. This vehicle picked it up as 60, so I was driving along the highway where it's 110 and it's showing me 60, and it kept saying, you know, you need to slow down or whatever. Yeah, I think it just needs more calibration and more tuning to get it right. But other than that, look, I think this is a good first crack. The refinement and cabin design and even the exterior design is pretty nice, especially with these colors that are coming out, very elegant colors. The touchscreen is very crisp and everything, and the digital instrument cluster, good passenger space, as I said, plenty of storage, and a high level of standard features. All right, let's head out now to the private road and see what it goes like. With dual clutch gearboxes that don't have launch control, I'm finding you can get slightly quicker times by doing what I call a mild brake hold. So obviously you can't do a traditional brake hold where you have one foot on the brake pedal, then you nail the throttle and let the engine revs build up a little bit on the brake. You can't do that with a dual clutch because the clutches will want to engage. So what I do is just put my foot on the brake and then just brush the throttle a tiny bit just so the clutches start to engage, and then release the brake straight away, and it just helps take up any of the driveline slack.